I've always heard that North Korea is isolated, sanctioned, and a radical communist state, with many countries not engaging with it. So how is it that, according to available statistics, it spends $10 billion a year on its military? Where does this money come from? Or how does it fund its regular expenses? It's been said that the $10 billion spent on the military accounts for 30 to 40% of its gross domestic product, GDP, which indicates that North Korea has the highest military expenditure relative to GDP among countries worldwide. Let's explore how North Korea generates its revenue. Unlike South Korea, North Korea doesn't have significant underground resources. In terms of resources, it's not a wealthy country. However, it does have some coal and iron, though not enough for substantial exports. It sells this limited amount of iron and coal primarily to China. Since the Korean War and the separation of the peninsula, North Korea's only income has been from these resources, selling 95% to China and using the remaining 5% domestically. As we reach the era of Kim Jong-un, the country found another significant expense: developing nuclear weapons. Interestingly, they not only build these weapons but also conduct tests. The last nuclear test occurred in 2017, after which the entire world imposed sanctions on North Korea, including China. The most significant sanctions were approved by the UN Security Council, stating that no country could purchase coal, iron, or seafood from North Korea. This meant the end of the 95% of coal and iron that China used to buy, leaving North Korea in a dire economic situation and leading to widespread hunger. In response, the North Korean government contacted China for assistance, saying they needed help since China was no longer buying their iron and coal. China suggested they pivot to producing wigs and false eyelashes, which they could easily sell. Interestingly, North Korea imports real hair from China, processes it into artificial hair, and then sells it back to China for distribution worldwide. In summary, without China, North Korea would struggle to survive. Essential goods like rice, fertilizers, and food are also imported from China. China often overlooks the sanctions against North Korea and helps prevent its collapse by secretly purchasing its products. To maintain this trade without detection, North Korean ships load iron and coal and head into international waters. They transfer their cargo to other ships in a convoluted process to obscure the transaction before finally delivering it to a Chinese port. In exchange for the iron and coal they manage to sell, North Korea receives oil and money from China. However, these transactions are facilitated through Hong Kong and Macau's mafia networks that specialize in moving money discreetly. While the North Korean government manages its expenses this way, the situation for its people is dire. According to Google statistics, 42% of North Korea's population is hungry, suffering from malnutrition. Kim Jong-un doesn't seem to prioritize this issue. He keeps Pyongyang somewhat clean while the rest of the country remains impoverished. He attempts to attract tourists to increase revenue, but with little success due to safety concerns. Recently, they made arrangements for Russian tourists to visit interesting sites in North Korea, but many still fear traveling there. Many believe these promotions are futile since even Russians hesitate to visit due to safety concerns. There are notorious incidents involving tourists. For instance, an American tourist was arrested after taking a propaganda poster from a hotel wall as a souvenir. Unbeknownst to him, hotel cameras recorded the act. He was detained and taken to prison, where he was told he had committed theft and faced severe penalties unless he publicly blamed his actions on America. This situation illustrates the complexities of North Korea's economy and its interactions with the world, while highlighting the struggles faced by its citizens amid government priorities focused on military spending and nuclear development. The existence of such fear is evident when someone comes in front of the camera and makes a statement, only to be sentenced to 15 years in prison, right there. He says, "I told you, why don't you forgive me?" They respond, "We have forgiven you. If we hadn't, you would have been executed." However, after a few months, The situation of Otto Warmbier deteriorates to the point that they decide to send him back to America. During that time, he had gone into a coma, and what exactly happened to him remains unclear. When he arrived in America, they scanned his brain and found that he had suffered a severe blow to his head, an injury that had put him into a deep coma and left him in a vegetative state. North Korea, a land of mystery and contradictions, stands as one of the last remaining bastions of classical communism in the modern world, a country where time itself seems to have stopped decades ago. Hidden behind tightly controlled borders and shrouded in secrecy, it exists as both a symbol of isolation and an enigma that fascinates outsiders. From the snow-covered mountains of the north to the eerily pristine boulevards of Pyongyang, everything about this nation feels carefully choreographed, as if life itself were a meticulously directed performance. To a visitor, North Korea might seem strangely orderly. The wide avenues are spotless. Citizens move in perfect sync, and massive monuments rise like silent witnesses to a grand ideology. Yet behind this facade of unity and discipline lies one of the most rigidly controlled societies on Earth. Here, life revolves entirely around an idea: Yucha, the national philosophy established by the country's founder, Kim Il-sung. Yucha teaches self-reliance, political independence, and absolute loyalty to the leader. In North Korea, the leader is not merely a head of state. He is a symbol of the nation's spirit, its history, and for many citizens, a near-divine figure. Kim Il-sung, who established North Korea in 1948 after the end of Japanese occupation and the division of the Korean peninsula, remains an eternal presence in the country. His image adorns every public space, his words are taught in every classroom, and even decades after his death in 1994, he still holds the title of Eternal President. After him, his son Kim Jong-il inherited power, ruling through fear and charisma, blending strict control with theatrical displays of devotion. Upon his death in 2011, the leadership passed to Kim Jong-un, the current ruler, cementing what is effectively the world's only hereditary communist dynasty, a paradox in itself. Daily life in North Korea unfolds under the watchful eyes of the state. Every citizen belongs to a social classification system known as songbun, which determines one's opportunities in education, employment, and even marriage, based on the political loyalty of their ancestors. Radios are pre-tuned to government stations. Newspapers carry only state-approved narratives, and the internet, as the world knows it, is replaced by a tightly monitored domestic network. Yet within these confines, people still find moments of humanity. Children play, friends gather in quiet parks, and families celebrate modest holidays with joy that feels both fragile and defiant. Pyongyang, the capital, stands as a strange blend of grandeur and emptiness. Its wide streets are lined with monumental architecture, triumphal arches, towering apartment blocks, and massive statues of the Kim leaders. But traffic is scarce, and the silence is almost unsettling. At night, much of the city remains dark due to power shortages, save for the illuminated portraits of the leaders that glow like beacons in the gloom. Still, there is beauty in the symmetry, the disciplined choreography of daily parades, and the haunting songs that echo across public squares, praising the nation and its eternal leaders. Beyond the capital, the reality becomes starker. Rural life is marked by hardship and scarcity. The famine of the 1990s, known as the Arduous March, claimed hundreds of thousands of lives, yet stories of survival, courage, and endurance still echo quietly through the generations. The people of North Korea are often portrayed as victims of tyranny, yet they are also survivors, bound by a sense of collective identity and pride that persists even in the face of oppression. For outsiders, North Korea provokes both fear and fascination. Its nuclear program, military parades, and fiery rhetoric dominate global headlines. But the deeper story is one of human endurance within an extraordinary social experiment. Visitors who manage to enter through carefully guided tours describe an almost surreal experience. A place where smiling guides deliver scripted answers, where reality is curated, and where every scene feels both real and unreal at the same time. And yet, beneath the layers of control, there is an undeniable sense of longing. A quiet pulse that suggests that even in the most isolated nation on Earth, dreams of connection and change still flicker. North Korea remains a paradox, a country frozen in ideology, yet still beating with human emotion. A place where the walls are high, but not impenetrable. A land that resists the world, and yet cannot help but be part of it.